Hello and welcome back to the Frogs of War podcast. I'm Anthony North. I'm here with Russ Hodges, and we're here to talk all things TCU athletics. And we're back at it with coming off another thrilling win over a top 20 opponent, top 10 opponent at home against Oklahoma State. A thriller in double overtime. Russ, your thoughts? How are you feeling? First thought tonight.
Feeling good. Watched the game with my folks. Just really blessed to have two consecutive weeks of really, really good football. So proud to see how TCU was able to bounce back from that early deficit and getting free football. You can never be too down about that. I'm sure the fans loved it too. And a shout out to the students who supported the team. 6,200 students were at the game. That was a school record.
Broke the record.
I'm sure it was around 50,000. The stadium was rocking. I wish I was there. Just an awesome feeling. And 6-0, and the reward is ranked opponent for the fourth week in a row. So we keep churning, and hopefully TCU can continue to string along this what's been an unbelievable start so far.
Yeah, man, the Carter was absolutely popping. Yeah, it was the second most attendance since the Utah game back in 2009. And so beat out that Oklahoma game from earlier this year. The most students at a game. It was pretty great. For me, it was my birthday, so I got to be in the building with 50,000 of my closest friends on my birthday. It's a fun celebration. Got a nice parting present there with the field storming and pretty incredible atmosphere and incredible comeback. Just the perseverance of this team to go down early, another slow start, and to just keep clawing back and keep chipping away to tie that game up with under 2 minutes left and not have the lead at all during any of regulation and come out with the win. So we'll jump into it. So like I said, the slow start in the first half, I was pretty concerned. I had gotten to that spot of like, I let myself start thinking good things about this team, and here we are. I'm ready to get hurt again. It was that kind of thing. And Spencer Sanders was doing good Spencer Sanders things in the first half, kind of finding his way out of the pocket and getting around TCU defenders that looked a little bit lost, a little bit slow, a little bit, not quite into the game to start. And Sanders, that first touchdown where he gets backed up there, it looks like TCU's about to get a nice stop, and he finds his way. The running back kind of runs out, and Johnny Hodges just follows the running back and leaves his back to Spencer Sanders. And a running threat like that, you can't turn your back to. And he found a lane there. From that end, I mean, how are you feeling that going down 2 touchdowns early against a top 10 opponent? Were you nervous there?
Yeah, I was tapping my foot nervously at the start of that game, and we talked on the pod last week about a key for TCU defensively coming into this game is that Spencer Sanders is capable of making some big plays with his feet, and you can't allow a quarterback like that to break contain. You got to force him to be a passer, which I think was a huge adjustment for the Frogs later in this game. But early on, it was really about Spencer Sanders improvising. The screen pass was really effective for the Cowboys early in the game as well. I think Dominic Richardson finished with 3 catches for 79 yards and actually was Oklahoma State's leading receiver in the game. But yeah, I was concerned. Spencer Sanders was making plays with his legs, of course, and knowing that was a big key coming in, you wondered how the Frogs would respond. But facing some adversity last week against Kansas, we saw TCU be able to recover from that, and to see the adjustments that the Frogs made defensively toward the end of the first half and throughout the second half were really encouraging to see. And It started really with stopping the run. Dominic Richardson finished with under 4 yards a carry. The front six deserve an incredible amount of credit there. And TCU was able to fight back, held them to only 6 points in the second half.
Yeah, I think that's Dominic Richardson gets some love just because he does accumulate stats, but that's from a lot of just giving him the ball so much. So I think he's not Chuba Hubbard, he's not Jalen Warren, and TCU was able to, even though he did get his yards and he did sneak out on some screen passes, he doesn't have that. He was not able to get that kind of death blow to break any deep against TCU. And obviously we'll talk a bunch about Kansas State coming up and their back, who absolutely has that ability. And Deuce Vaughn, you give him an inch and he'll take it to the house. So maybe tougher days ahead in the run game. On the offensive side, it was worrisome early on how it felt like TCU was really playing conservatively, and Dyke said as much after the game, kind of saying, he thought maybe the players were a little bit tight, but also that the coaches were coaching tight and coaching maybe a little bit nervous, coaching a little not to lose early on, and it put the Frogs in a hole. I mean, the first couple drives had short fourth down opportunities that I think we've seen this team take that chance in the past, and instead we're happy to concede possession to the Cowboys. And I think the first drive ended up 3 and out on what kind of a questionable spot from where I was sitting. It looked like he might have gotten there, but it was a 4th and short, and instead decided to punt it. And then the second drive, maybe like a 4th and 5, but across midfield. Those are the kind of things that maybe we would have seen a few years ago, but hadn't seen yet this year. So a little bit conservative early, and I think Oklahoma State was doing some good things to mess with the offensive rhythm. The substitution shenanigans that Coach Gundy and the Cowboys were pulling there, where it was clearly frustrating Max. It was frustrating the fans in the crowd. And so for those listening, so basically if the offense substitutes, the defense has an opportunity to also substitute, and the ref will hold the snap to make it so that the quarterback can't start the play until that defensive substitution is complete. Oklahoma State was using that to their advantage of, if TCU was subbing, Oklahoma State would take as long as possible to get off the field on their substitutions. They would kind of amble off, slowly wandering like lost puppies over towards the sideline. And it worked in the first half, and Dykes really got on to the refs about it. And I understand that from the broadcast, they caught him yelling at the refs pretty good. And,
yep.
and Max was kind of yelling at the refs, and it was clearly, even if it was eventually going to produce some penalties, it had gotten into the coaching staff's head, it had gotten into the quarterback's head, and so that was an effective kind of distraction from Oklahoma State early. And it was good that TCU was able to eventually get that touchdown later in that half and kind of break out of that, but it felt like a really slow start, and it showed that they were playing a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the shenanigans, I was talking about it with my dad, and I think by the rule there's a explicit statement that the players gotta make an effort to get off the field, right? But at the same time, Oklahoma State is taking their time to get off the field because TCU is subbing guys on late. They're not subbing guys on with 25, 30 seconds on the play clock. They're bringing guys on the field with 15, 12 seconds left on the play clock. So getting the plays in earlier and making your substitutions immediately would have definitely helped there. And then also I think the coaches and players being frustrated in that moment, I think was more of just them being in the heat of battle and feeling like Oklahoma State is kind of gaming them. But at the same time, I think, like, for example, Max, he can't be complaining to the official there. I mean, if you're at a higher level of quarterback play, you got to know right away that's an opportunity to get a free play. With 12 guys on the field, it's like you see it with Aaron Rodgers all the time. He sees a defense subbing off late, tells the center, snap the ball. I don't care who we have on the field. I don't care what the play call is. Just snap the ball because you're going to get a free 5, at the very least. So it was encouraging to see TCU adjust in the second half. I believe they did get Oklahoma State called for 2 penalties.
A couple times, yeah.
And it was nice to see them just kind of stay composed. Again, the slow start combined with that, I think maybe just had the guys frazzle a little bit. But, anything you can do to win a football game. If you can bend the rules just a little bit, why not do it? I'm sure most coaches who have been around long enough, like Mike Gundy has, will do whatever they can to, try and get a little bit of a competitive advantage. But a good teaching point, I think, for future games and a good learning experience overall.
Yeah, it worked out, and clearly we're able to go forward from there. And like I said, got the touchdown on Max Duggan keeper after he hits Quentin Johnston on a kind of a post route that gets him down to the 1. Following that, TCU defense had a quick 3 and out. It looked like, all right, TCU's about to get the ball near midfield with a chance to go down and tie the game. And very uncharacteristic play from Darius Davis. He fumbles the punt on following that 3 and out. And I think we've given a lot of praise to Darius Davis. He's been excellent this season. This was not his best game, perhaps maybe his worst game as a Horned Frog, and several uncharacteristic things. So obviously this fumble was a huge moment in the game, potentially. And there were several plays, and some of it is on Max, but where it's that quick hitter wide receiver screen play that he dropped or was too low, or just he wasn't really able to get anything going in this particular game. And maybe it speaks to the depth of skill talent that TCU has on this team, that you have a guy of the quality of Darius Davis to have his off game, and you still come out on top, and still the offense is able to do what it did all day. Was good to see, but a tough day from Darius Davis.
Yeah, I think you could tell he was trying. I think he was just trying to do a little too much. And you could see from the start that Oklahoma State on special teams did a really nice job in kick coverage. You saw Darius try to take the ball out of the end zone a couple times and not even get to the 20. He did have a nice punt return, I believe, later in the game of about 25 yards or so. But I also felt like Oklahoma State defensively came out with a game plan of stopping the short passing game that has worked really well for TCU this season. A lot of the quick screens and quick stop routes and slants that Max Duggan has connected on early in games to get into a rhythm, Oklahoma State was taking those away. Some of those I felt like, Max grounded a couple of those throws because his feet weren't set. He was rushing everything. But I want to say Darius Davis, his first 4 or 5 receptions went for under 10 yards combined. So the Cowboys deserve some credit, I think, for keying in on that and trying to take him out of the game, not only on the offensive side, but also on special teams. But the combination of running the ball with Kenray Miller and Amari DiMercato and feeding the beast, feeding Quentin Johnston, that's been a pretty successful formula. I think TCU comes out and they want to try and play with pace and spread the ball around and get the quick passing game going to get Max in a rhythm. And if that doesn't work, feed number one. And I think that's what kind of happened down the stretch with Quentin Johnston. And I think he's just showing right now that it doesn't really matter who's covering him. Another awesome game, 8 catches, 180 yards, and a touchdown. The offensive line was really getting off the football in the second half. Kenry Miller making things very difficult for Cowboy defenders to tackle him. I was on Twitter reading a tweet that Dean Straka put out about what it's like to be on the field hearing opponents cussing to themselves and being frustrated about having to tackle Kenry Miller, because it looks like a very difficult task to try and tackle a 220-pound running back with that great of balance. But getting back to Darius Davis, he's an experienced player. This is a game that you flush down the toilet, you move on to the next one. You're still having a really good season, and you have, like you said, the complement of skill talent that TCU has. If one guy is faltering, another guy picks the slack up. So that was really nice to see from TCU in this game.
Yeah, definitely. And another piece of the game in the first half that was not indicative, or we hadn't seen from TCU yet in their performances this season, is an inability to kind of close drives in the first half. So there, at the end of the first half, TCU got 3 straight possessions inside the 30, good scoring opportunities. These are chances you have to convert, and out of those 3 opportunities, only came away with 6 total points, 2 field goals, and a 4th down conversion attempt that was not very good. I think that was Darius Davis again on the run. I don't know. It was an attempted trick play, reverse. I think Sam Jackson was on the field. I think the offense had been working pretty well, and there was certainly a trick play later in the game that ended up working out well for the Frogs, but it didn't seem like the bag of tricks was necessary at that point. I think that the TCU offense could have lined up and maybe had a good chance to pick that up just straight away. But in any case, only 6 points on 3 opportunities inside the 30 is not what you want there. And I guess the silver lining out of that is Griffin Kell was excellent on Saturday. I mean, it's the kind of thing that even that last touchdown to come within 1 before the extra point, a lot of places in college football, the kicker gets nervous there and it gets a shank and you miss it wide right by 10 yards, and he kicks it into the Showgirls or something. So I think it can't be overlooked that he was able to perform when given these opportunities. And we don't like to see him out there kicking field goals. We'd rather see him out there kicking extra points. But being able to get some points on those drives was critical, and so big time props to the kicker. I know kickers are players too. They need to get their love, and he had a great game. So big ups to him. Anything else on the first half?
No, I think just touching on Griffin Kell. I mean, both kickers were excellent in this game. Tanner Brown was perfect.
Yes, yeah.
Hitting a 52-yarder in double overtime, which was, I believe, his career long. He hadn't. I don't think he had even attempted a kick over 50 yards. If he did, maybe he missed one. But that was a huge kick, and Griffin Kell was perfect on the day. And I think that's what you want to see and what you should see when high-level football is being played. When you have number 8 versus number 13. Was TCU 13 in this game?
Yeah, 13.
Yeah. So in a game like that, it's coming down to the wire. You see players perform in all 3 phases, and it was really cool to see both kickers and even both punters, honestly, playing really well. And you talk about that play to Darius Davis. I think in that scenario, that was actually a slow substitution scenario for Oklahoma State, and Max was trying to rush and get the playoff to maybe.
It felt like a time for a timeout there. It was like,
I was about to say, I'm not sure if we had timeouts in that moment or not, but considering the way the game had been going for Darius Davis up to that point, I didn't love the call. It looked like maybe for a moment the play was there though, but then the Cowboys closed, and you got to give them credit there. But getting 6 points, the biggest key obviously was coming out in the second half with Oklahoma State getting the ball. You got to get a stop, right away. And even if it meant holding them to 3 in a game where you can score quickly in college football, especially in Big 12 football. So I believe it was the Cowboys' opening drive of the second half. They were able to get it down the field. I want to say there was a long screen pass on that drive, but they settled for 3. And we've seen that from TCU's defense this season. It's the cliche, bend, don't break. TCU's defense bent in different scenarios in this game, but they didn't break. They held them to 3 when they had to. They forced Spencer Sanders to be a passer. And Brennan Presley is a really good player. He was largely a non-factor in this game.
He was nothing. Yeah, he was basically shut out. Yeah. He did not have a good game.
And the touchdown pass that Sanders threw to John Paul Richardson, that was really good coverage too. That was just
Newton was on him. He was all over.
Great defense and even greater offense there. But the coverage by TCU in this game was really, really good. They took away the deep threat for Oklahoma State throughout most of the game. Josh Newton had an awesome game. Bud Clark had an awesome game, stepping up in the fourth quarter, had an interception on a ball where, if Spencer Sanders puts that on the money, that could be a touchdown, but Bud Clark deserves a lot of credit for his recovery on that route to get in front of it and position his body to get the interception. And we talked about the defensive line last week and how the pass rush has been kind of non-existent, and what Joe Gillespie, the defensive coordinator, can do to try and generate some kind of a pass rush that doesn't just involve blitzing guys. I thought the stunts were really creative in this game, especially in the second half, and you started seeing TCU get home rushing 3 guys. I mean, we talked about Dylan Horton last week and how he's kind of been largely a non-factor this season. He's playing a new position and a new system, but you saw him getting through on a couple plays, hurrying the quarterback. They kept contained. The linebackers didn't over pursue. Jamoy Hodge, I thought, had a really nice performance in the second half and really for the game, making some key stops, and just really good positive momentum for the defense as a whole. Now, as you get ready for Kansas State, where I think the key will be kind of similar. We'll talk about Kansas State in a little bit, but was really, really encouraging to see how TCU responded defensively in that second half.
Yeah, the TCU defense, it's pretty incredible. So the final 40 minutes of game time. So with 10 minutes left in the second quarter, Sanders hits John Paul Richardson on that on that play over Newton into the end zone, and that's the last touchdown that the Cowboys score in regulation. That is a lot of game time to hold an offense of that caliber and with that experienced quarterback to no touchdowns. So extremely impressive work from all levels of the defense. I mean, the front did a great job containing and slowing the running game, and Newton and Clark in particular having excellent games, and through the offseason, Spencer Sanders was one that I kind of had fun with, of like, I didn't think very highly of Spencer Sanders, and I think he's well outperformed what my low expectations were. But coming out of that Big 12 title game where last season where he was quite bad, it's a live by the Spencer Sanders, die by the Spencer Sanders, and he will have great plays in a game, and it'll be some boneheaded play that is just why did that happen? Why did we go there? And it ended up not really hurting the Cowboys in the end, the interception there, but I think on most of those drives towards the end of the game where the Cowboys had plenty of opportunities to close this out. They pick up a few first downs, they burn some clock, they hold on to the ball and don't throw that interception. They should be coming away with that win. And, I think the number of 3-and-outs that TCU was able to get and forcing Sanders into bad plays and then, collapsing that pocket and making him try to scramble. And then when he did, having nowhere to go. I don't think there's enough that can be said about how great that the TCU defense played there through the last 40 minutes of game time and really all through the overtime. I mean, the second overtime, they pushed him back like 15 yards. I mean, they didn't gain a single yard on that second overtime drive. So let's see. Let's talk about the game tying touchdown drive. So TCU gets the ball back. The Oklahoma State punter pins TCU down inside the 10. So here we are, TCU under like 5 minutes to play, has to go 90 yards to tie the game, to keep the season alive. And just kept the composure and did everything well. I mean, Max on that drive Max did everything great. Kendre Miller had like an incredible catch on a screen where he had to kind of jump up and snag one that a lot of times that's like, man, Max overthrew the guy and now and that picked up big yards. Had Quentin Johnston going a couple first down pass to Jared Wiley, and then the trickeration kind of funky play to Wiley for the touchdown. So not really seeing replays of this other than like Wiley getting in. I guess there was some sort of reverse motion action that had the Oklahoma State front fooled enough that they were all standing right there in front of Max, but didn't tackle him. I don't know. It was a very weird situation. And then Jared Wiley was just standing wide open and was able to dive into the end zone. What did you think about that play there? Obviously, super exciting play.
Yeah, I think the play, I had to go back and watch it a couple times too, because at first glance, it looked like, and I think this is what it was, is they were lined up like they were going to run a read option, but Max was lined up as the running back, and whoever was in the game at running back at the time, I don't remember if it was DeMercado or Miller, took the snap, gave the ball to Max, and then Max flicked it out to Jared Wiley for the touchdown. So I think I did a double take too. I was confused. They scored on the play.
Wasn't there? I feel like there was somebody coming around.
Yeah,
I think there was somebody coming around behind Max too. Like maybe he was going to pitch it back because everybody just kind of stopped.
Yeah,
like they had no idea where the ball was or where it was going to go.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State was a little confused, and it was nice that Max put some touch on that throw as well because Jared Wiley was wide open. Why they reviewed the call, I don't know. I
was worried because it's right there in that same spot of the Max was in.
I literally was just about to say Jared was in. Like, come on, guys. Yeah. There's no need to be looking at this long. But
it was right. It was like the same blade of grass that was the Max was in.
But that drive. One thing and this is kind of a little thing, but I think it's honestly something that Max can really build on for future games is he threw a check down to Kendre Miller. And he picked up a lot of yards off of it. I think there were several dropbacks in this game where he had Kenray Miller wide open on just a check down underneath where he can pick up maybe 8 to 10 yards and even a first down, and Max just wouldn't look his way. He's looking downfield, wants to make the throw down the field, pick up the yardage and the first down, but the internal clock has got to be running a little bit. You drop back 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Now you gotta start looking for your check down, or you gotta tuck the ball and run. You can't, even though TCU's offensive line has been tremendous throughout the season, any good offensive line is not going to hold a pocket for 5 seconds, 4, 5, 6 seconds. So I really would like to see Max check the ball down a little bit more often, or even tuck it and run it. But it was nice to see him on that drive make a smart play. He got the ball to Kenray Miller, and he picks up a lot of yards. Quentin Johnston, again, was a big playmaker on that drive. And, I watched the Chicago Bulls, and it's a Stacey King thing to say, is big-time players make big-time plays. So in that drive, you have Duggan, Johnston, Miller, all making notable plays. And then Jared Wiley, before the touchdown, he had a really nice grab on a crossing route over the middle, using all of that 6'7" to go up and get that ball. And he's really someone, I think, he's been used in the red zone a little bit this year. What a weapon that is to have. I mean, we've talked about it before, when you have a receiver on one side who's 6'4", Quentin Johnston, you have one receiver on the other side who's 6'5", Savion Williams, and then you can roll a tight end over the middle who's 6'7". Good luck. If you're in
it's tough. Yeah, so sends it to overtime, and actually there's still like 2 minutes left, and both teams had a chance at a drive to go win it in regulation. Oklahoma State wasn't able to do anything, gives the ball back to TCU. TCU ends up not able to do anything. We go to overtime, and right away Frogs have the ball. It's Max and QJ. It's a touchdown. It's money all day. And that's great. TCU defense sets up a big 4th and long. The place is going crazy. It's ready to explode. Everybody's ready to pour out onto the field. And they pick up that first down and then score to go to the second overtime. And we talked about the defensive stop in second overtime and the big kick from Oklahoma State to keep it interesting. And I think, maybe unheralded play in the game is because we all will remember Kenray Miller going into the end zone for the win. But the play before that Max, I guess not the play before, but the play Max, the play before. Max gets the ball down to the 1 yard line on just like a kind of, he pinballs off guys, and he's just a bowling ball and he can't go down, and he's all heart and grit. And I really wish he would have gotten in, because that would have been just a classic walk-off play. A few plays earlier, he's kind of like holding his shoulder, and it's clear, like, man, this is a physical game, and he's been through this battle, and to take that run down to the 1 yard line, and of course Miller takes it in, and it's pandemonium, and just a thrilling win. TCU gets a win over a top 10 team at home, and now in the top 10 itself. Big days ahead. I don't know what was your, being in the building, and I have to be somewhat contained, but it was just electric. Watching the broadcast, how was the feeling?
Yeah, both of my parents got big hugs after the game. That's for sure. But I was really excited. I'm really happy for Kenray Miller, because, and we put a little piece up earlier this week. He's a player that came in as a 3-star prospect, was I think the 3rd running back on the depth chart as a freshman behind Darwin Barlow, who was a 4-star running back, and Zach Evans, who was a 5-star. And it's kind of Barlow and Evans to start the season, and Zach Evans kind of supplants Barlow and then comes back, and he's the big time running back, and a lot of people are talking about him. And we know Zach Evans is a really, really good football player. But Kenray Miller, as a freshman, as a sophomore, was super, super efficient whenever he touched the ball. It didn't matter what point of the game he came in. And for him to come in this year with no Zach Evans, new coach, new staff and everything, and not only be the number one guy, but perform at a high level. He finished with 104 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. He's statistically a top 5 running back in the Big 12 in multiple categories. Just a really cool thing to see for a guy who I remember reading reports out of camp in 2020 about how Kenray Miller was this diamond in the rough, like a guy that came in and really started turning some heads, and is just showing that. I mean, he's got so many tools in his tool bag. I mean, he's a big physical running back, but he runs with really good balance, and his yards after contact, I would really like to look up what his yards after contact are this season, because I'm sure they're among the top running backs in college football.
Yeah, or runs for negative yards. I mean, anytime anybody gets to him in the backfield, he makes a miss. I don't know how he does it. He put a couple in the spin cycle in this game. He's got little juke moves to get past guys. It feels like even if the defenders are getting to him, he's able to make something out of the play, something that maybe is a loss of 2 turns into a gain of 2 or a gain of 4. And those are huge moments in games. And we've talked about it. It just has to be a nightmare to see him coming to you. You have no idea if he's going to be running through you and stomping on you on his way to the end zone, or if he's going to set his foot and cut past you, or if he's going to spin around you. I mean, I don't know how you approach him as a defender. It's a tough proposition, and it's great that he's running with the Frogs.
Yep, we're not out there. We're doing the podcast, and it's probably better for us for that reason.
It is, yeah, most definitely. All right, so that closes it for the recap on the win. Just to close out some other things around the Big 12 from last week, to kind of set where things are going forward for the Frogs. So West Virginia beat Baylor on a Thursday night game in Morgantown. Tricky spot there for Baylor, and ends up Blake Shapen goes down injured, and Drones looked pretty good in this game, and thought that he really did some things well, but West Virginia gets that win and puts Baylor with 2 conference losses now. Then Oklahoma defeats Kansas 52-42. Oklahoma looked more like Oklahoma again. Dylan Gabriel was back. Jalen Daniels was not back for Kansas. And that showed on the scoreboard. And then right before the TCU game, or as the TCU game was getting started, the Texas Longhorns took down Iowa State 24-21. Controversial ending. There was a lot of talk around in the media group of like, oh man, what's this Texas? Come on, what is this? But I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough call there. Fumble, no fumble, targeting, no targeting there on Hunter Deckers at the end. Really, it came down to if Xavier Hutchinson, their star receiver, just makes a catch, they win the game. It's tough scenes there.
Yeah, things you hate to see that. Like that is,
yeah.
It's Iowa State now being 0-4, I believe, in the conference, and all 4 losses coming by a combined 16 points. I mean, I don't think you can get kicked in the groin more times than that. And Xavier Hutchinson is arguably the best wide receiver in the Big 12. I mean, he's a tremendous player, and for him to drop that ball, and it doesn't get much easier than that. You see high-level high school players make that grab, and just I don't think he'll have a drop like that maybe for the rest of his career. But that's kind of how it's gone for Iowa State so far. I mean, Jace Gilbert, the kicker, misses 3 field goals in the Kansas game. Bounces back against Kansas State, but they can't get into double digits scoring wise. It's one thing or another, it seems. And I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and I joke with my friends and family a lot about how the Bears invent ways to lose football games more than any other team in the NFL. It's kind of like Iowa State's inventing new ways to lose. I hope it turns around soon. I think they're due. Maybe it'll be the next game coming up, but like you said, just a tough scene for the Cyclones.
All right, so moving forward to Week 8, TCU's 7th game of the season. Number 17, Kansas State, coming to Fort Worth, Texas, Amon G. Carter Stadium. Saturday night, finally got that primetime game, 7 p.m., be broadcast on FS1 thanks to Major League Baseball playoffs occupying mainline Fox. But huge game here, and it's so exciting to have a night game. It'll be a blackout, so there'll be so many comparisons to that 2014 game against Kansas State. That was the blackout game where the two teams were ranked in the top 10 going up against each other. That was a super exciting game to attend, and TCU came away with the win in that one. Different coaches on both sides of the field, obviously different players, different landscape of things, but really looking forward to this game. This is going to be super exciting. Russ, what are your initial thoughts looking forward to Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another really good game, and I think, frankly, Iowa State being a recent opponent for K-State, it's going to be really good teaching tape for TCU's defense, because Iowa State runs a similar base defense with a 3-3-5, and the key, I think, is really going to be similar to what it was for the Oklahoma State game, in that you have a even more dynamic runner in Adrian Martinez, who is going to have design runs for him. He can break contain easily. He's very elusive, and it's going to be even more paramount, like it was to contain Spencer Sanders and keep him in the pocket. Adrian Martinez, you got to make him throw the football. If they win the game by throwing 2 touchdown passes to Phillip Brooks, then so be it. This is a really good rushing football team with Deuce Vaughn, who's one of the best running backs in the Big 12, if not all college football. Adrian Martinez has a lot of positive momentum rolling right now. But Iowa State did a really nice job. They held Deuce Vaughn to, I believe, 23 yards on 10 carries, which is not many teams have done that to Deuce Vaughn. So I'm sure the coaches in the film room for TCU are looking at that football game closely and seeing how they can emulate some of those similar concepts. But it's going to be a huge challenge for the front six, and it's going to be a front six, unfortunately, without Marcel Brooks. Sonny Dykes said on Tuesday that Marcel Brooks, he went down with a knee injury against Oklahoma State. He's got to have surgery, and it's likely season-ending. And it's a really unfortunate injury at a really inopportune time, because TCU's already had its bye week. They're going to play 6 consecutive games against 6 really quality football teams, and it really seemed like Marcel was finally getting into his role. You know, he's a 5-star prospect, started his career at LSU, transfers to TCU, changes positions. He was a wide receiver last year, now changes back to linebacker under a new coach and new scheme, and was playing real well in camp, suffers a rib injury, misses about a month or so, finally gets back healthy, had a couple of nice plays against Kansas, including a key tackle late in the game, made some nice plays in the Oklahoma State game, and now you're without him likely for the rest of the season. And this is a linebacking core that already lost Thomas Armstrong to a torn ACL in the game against Colorado. So there wasn't a whole lot of depth at linebacker to start the season, and now you're down 2 guys for the rest of the year. And with Marcel, you're going to lose a lot of athleticism on the outside, and so it becomes real crucial.
Yeah, his speed and his reach and his ability to get to the spot definitely would have been something you would like to have when you're trying to slow down Deuce Vaughn and Adrian Martinez here.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real inopportune time, but it's going to be an opportunity for some other players to step up. Wyatt Harris is a senior. He's played a little bit these last few years. Zach Marchescelli is a redshirt junior. Maybe Shad Banks gets a little bit more run, a former 4-star player. But, this is a K-State team that I'm guessing is probably going to run the ball at least 35 to 40 times in this game. So be ready for a real physical football game. And these linebackers, even like Johnny Hodges, who's a little banged up, I think he did something to his shoulder against Kansas. He was banged up in the Oklahoma State game. Not sure what his status is for this weekend, but the first huge test for TCU's run defense in that front 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about it a little before we started recording here, but it'll be interesting to see how Gillespie and the coaching staff decides how to kind of fill the hole, whether it will be kind of backfilling with some of the linebacker depth that is limited depth and it doesn't go very deep at all, or if we'll look to walk forward some of the safeties that are now starting to get a little bit more healthy and a lot of play time under their belts that maybe you bring. Mark Perry's been pretty excellent in his run stopping work thus far this season. Maybe you walk him up and I don't know if he's lives as a linebacker, but I think he can step into at least some of that space and fill the role. Let Kamara and Bud Clark and Miller Bradford kind of work the safety position behind, and maybe Perry steps up into kind of maybe like covering the slot, guys crossing over the middle. He covers that space, but then also is certainly capable of stepping into the run hole and stopping something that in that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you go back to the days of Gary Patterson and having kind of those hybrid safety linebacker types, and how those kinds of players with great speed were really successful in that 4-2-5. So Mark Perry has been a sure tackler for TCU. I want to say I think he leads the secondary in tackles right now. So
he's second only to Johnny Hodges for the season so far in tackles.
Right. Yeah, so I could definitely see bringing another guy up to the linebacker, or even just maybe have him line up a little closer to the line of scrimmage. K-State's going to be designing a lot of different run plays, and gotta have sure tackling in this game. That's for sure. I thought TCU tackled much better in the Oklahoma State game as opposed to the Kansas game. So being able to wrap up near the line of scrimmage is definitely going to be a huge key in this game.
Yeah, and for TCU on the offensive side, I think the offensive line has done a great job, and Max Duggan has done a great job of avoiding sacks and getting rid of the ball for the most part this season. But this will be by far the greatest challenge to that unit thus far on the season. Kansas has a strong defensive front. Oklahoma has a strong defensive front. Oklahoma State has a very strong defensive front, but none of them have Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Hopefully I said that close to correctly, but you know the guy I'm talking about. Felix on the defensive line for Kansas State is an absolute nightmare out there for offensive linemen. He had 4 sacks against the Horned Frogs last season. He's leading the Big 12 in sacks this season with 6.5. He will just ruin your night. So it will be very interesting to see how the TCU offensive line and play calling and everything addresses keeping him contained from causing havoc in the backfield and allowing the rest of that defensive front for the Wildcats kind of run wild. I think I don't know what the right answer is on how to attack this Kansas State defense. I think that there will be some of that screenplay, dump it over top of them. There will be kind of some run action at him that I think just kind of get those guys off balance and take the ball up the field. And of course, TCU still has Quentin Johnston on the outside, still has all of that, the rest of the skill talent to take advantage if given the opportunity, but can definitely see this Kansas State defense doing more to cause problems to Max and the offensive line than maybe we've seen thus far this season.
Yeah, I think two things that TCU does well that in general I think neutralize a pass rush or a good pass rusher are, number one, running the football, which I wouldn't be surprised if TCU comes out right away and tries to run the ball quite a bit. And also the quick passing game. Getting the ball out quickly to Darius Davis or Tay Barber, using screen passes. Those are two ways where you can take a pass rusher out of the game because you're not allowing that player an opportunity to disrupt the clean pocket. If one of those two things or both of those things don't happen, I'm really curious to see if Max can take that step in his, I guess, his development. I know he's a senior, but we've talked about how he likes to sit in the pocket, let the plays develop down the field, and keep his eyes down the field if, you know, the internal clock is still spinning. And for a TCU offensive line where Brandon Coleman is settling into left tackle, Andrew Coker has a lot of experience at right tackle, it's going to be a huge test for them, but it's also going to be a test for Max just to, if he's got a elite pass rusher on his blind side, is he going to have the pocket awareness to step up and check it down to his running back or tuck the ball and run, or is he going to take a lot of sacks? Because we've seen Duggan over the last couple of years get sacked a lot against Kansas State, and I think it's good to have that experience to learn from, and I'm really intrigued to see how he fares against this defense and an elite pass rusher for the first time.
So with that, let's start thinking about how we see this game play out. At this point, TCU is a 3.5-point favorite with a lowest total for the Frogs on the season, total of 54. There's been some weather prediction that even though it's going to be warm, that maybe it'll be windy. So allegedly that's playing into what's going on with the line totals here. I don't know that I buy it so much, but if that's what's causing it, then I'm not too worried. But I'm a little bit worried that this game opened like 6 or 6.5 TCU favorites, and there's been a lot of momentum towards the Wildcats here in the betting marketplace. Not that it's something they know, but that seems to be part of the analysis is that, all right, if it's too windy, TCU is more of a throwing team than Kansas State is, and it really impacts the TCU offense more than it would Kansas State, and Kansas State will just be able to run all day over TCU. Again, not sure how much I buy that, but on this game, this one, my prediction, I'm going to stick with the same exact prediction that I had in the preseason on this one. A TCU win 31-30. So we're going over that total. I could definitely see Deuce Vaughn is going to get his in this game. There's no way around it. And I keep going back to that 2014 game where TCU ran away with that game, but Tyler Lockett was a certified superstar, and he played like a superstar in that game. He was excellent. So I can definitely see Deuce Vaughn getting stuff going. Maybe Martinez doesn't get as loose as he got against like Oklahoma, some of the games earlier this year. But in some way, TCU sneaks out with a 1-point victory for a fourth straight top 20 victory for the Frogs.
Well, I'm picking TCU to cover the spread again, and I'm picking TCU to win again. I think Kansas State is going to, given how much they run the football, I think this is going to be a time of possession battle, and I think it's going to be a low scoring. I don't think the total 54 is going to get passed up, but I think TCU is going to stay perfect. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm picking the Frogs every week. It is going to be TCU 24-20. That's my final total. I think Griffin Kell is going to make a big kick somewhere in that game, and I think both defenses are going to play well. Frogs are going to win another close one and continue another add on another infinity stone to the gauntlet with these ranked wins.
That's right. All right. Hopefully one of those is the way it shakes out. Go Frogs, go win that game on Saturday. So being that we are officially at the halfway point of TCU season, having played 6 games with 6 to go, our Ask the Fans this week, and we'll hit through them pretty fast here, but we're asking what you guys all thought were the superlatives through 6 games. Who are the offensive, defensive MVPs, our top new coming transfer, and the play of the season thus far. So, Russ, who's your offensive MVP through the season other than Max Duggan? Because I think we can all kind of agree Duggan is the guy. He's carrying the team in a way that he's a leader and he's the man. And we all love Max Duggan, and he's the offensive MVP, and he's going to be making a Heisman run, and yeehaw, giddy up, here we go. Other than Max, who's your offensive MVP?
I wish I could make this a co-offensive MVP award, but I'm not going to be that cheesy. I think it's Kendra Miller. I know Quentin Johnston has had 2 really, really awesome games in recent weeks, 8 catches for 180 against Oklahoma State, 206 yards the week before that. But TCU passing the ball, first few weeks of the season, it was spreading the wealth. Everyone was getting a little bit of love. Seemed like every game it was 12, 13 guys catching the ball at least. But Kendra Miller has just been so consistent throughout the season with his touches, with his production, the ability to shed tacklers and turn 1 yard into 6 and turn a negative play into a positive play. I think what he does for TCU's offense is so underrated because TCU has all kinds of pass-catching talent, but if you can't run the football well, teams are just going to play zone coverage all day, rush 3 guys all day. It's going to make things a lot more difficult to throw the ball. It starts really, I think, with running the football, and because Kendra Miller has had such a great start, non-quarterback wise, I think he's got to be your MVP because he's been as sure-handed gets, and I think things are only going to continue to go up from here. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry. He's shown he can catch passes out of the backfield too. I believe he's a true 3-down running back, and if he continues to develop the way he has over these first, 2.5 years of his career, could hear his name called on Sunday at some point.
He'll get a look in the NFL, I think, at this pace for sure. And just to give a little love to Darius Davis. I know we bagged on him a little bit earlier, and he had a tough game here against Oklahoma State, but he's been the guy that has had that spark moment that has gotten everything going. So, you know, Colorado game, he has the punt return touchdown. He has the big, long, super fast run against SMU. He has the twinkle toes on the sideline, keeps him in bounds and runs down for the long touchdown against Kansas. I think he deserves a little bit of at least just acknowledgement. And then the offensive line as well. I think it's hard for, Max can't be doing what he's doing and Kendrick can't be doing what he's doing without the offensive line giving him enough time and space to make it work. So, and really just the huge leaps and bounds that have been made from last season. Shout out to them as well. All right. Defensive MVP. What's your call here?
I think it's Josh Newton. I think the way he has come in as a transfer and the transfer portal acquisitions as a whole for TCU have paid off big time. I mean, whether it's Mark Perry, Josh Newton, Alana Lee, Jared Wiley. I mean, TCU has had transfers all over the place producing so far this year. But I think for Josh Newton, it's not just the way he's played, having the pass breakups and making huge plays, but I mean, you saw episode 1 of the docuseries that TCU is doing.
Carter Boys.
I was about to say Funky Town Boys. Carter Boys. You can tell this is a player who has already taken on a leadership role with this team. And I think that's really cool to see for someone who's just coming in. You have guys who have been here for 2, 3, 4 years already. When you see a player come in like that with those kinds of leadership intangibles, I think it does a lot for your defense. And defense is all about effort. It's all about heart. And I think Josh Newton he's you could argue he's the number 2 corner for TCU, but he's playing like a number 1 corner right now. So I think he's been a huge part of TCU's success on defense. So I gotta go with Josh Newton. Fig Newton.
Yeah, I love it, man. He's such a fun player to root for, and yeah, he's on the other side from Hodges Tomlinson. But when you've got that second guy who is playing at the level that Newton is playing, it makes it very difficult for offenses to get going through the air, because Tomlinson has been strong as well. And I think, he hasn't had like the big highlight plays, but part of that is he's just been a rock. He doesn't miss tackles. He's with receivers, even if those guys are making plays on the ball, he's there stopping them for no extra yardage. So, then having Newton on the other side where, yeah, he's getting peppered with targets and is just taking care of his business on the other side. And he did get mossed a little bit on that touchdown against Oklahoma State, but he was in the right spot, and there's just sometimes there's nothing you could do when it's a great play like that. The other two I had on the list there were Kamara, who's just been the walking hit stick, and D. Winters, who, maybe didn't have a great game against Oklahoma State either, but he's been pretty excellent out there as well. He's out there leading in sacks. He's leading in all of these things for the Frogs, where he makes a lot of things happen. He's kind of he stirs the drink out there for the defense, and good to give him some love too. But I'm kind of with you that it's Newton, which makes the next question maybe a little bit too easy. But best incoming transfer, like you said, it was an absolute haul from the new coaching staff in the offseason to bring these guys in. So Johnny Hodges came in from Navy. He's leading the team in tackles. Simon Mitchell from Georgia is third on the team in sacks and is doing a great job clogging things up in the middle. Josh Newton, yeah, in the blog on this one, my description for Josh Newton was just got that dog in him. Yep. Mark Perry from Colorado, second on the team in tackles and doing everything in the run game. Maybe not as strong in the pass game this season thus far, but we'll see how that continues. Alana Lee from SMU is anchoring that offensive line that we've talked about, and then Jared Wiley came in from Texas and is a literal giant and making plays out there. And yeah, I think this one is pretty clearly Newton, but I think you can make some cases for some other guys.
Yeah, I think honestly you can make a case for Alana Lee being the top transfer, mainly because we have a coaching staff that's coming over from SMU. Garrett Riley's the offensive coordinator. When you have a center who is the quarterback of the offensive line, right? Steve Avila was a first-team All Big 12 center last year. He's kicked over to left guard, so Alana Lee can come in and play center. I mean, that, I think, says a lot about a player's value when you have someone who's already a high-level interior lineman who's going to change a position for a guy who's coming in. And Ali has a lot of experience. And I think having a player with that kind of familiarity with the offense and the system makes the transition so much easier for the quarterback, for the skill players, and everyone else on the offensive line. And, frankly, this is an offensive line that has kind of sucked over the last few years. But having Ali come in, and I think there were questions, what is he going to play tackle? Is he going to play center? Because he's played a lot of different positions throughout his career. To come in and play center, that by default makes you better at left guard, because now Steve Avila is there. He's a first-team All Big 12 caliber guy. So not only, solidifying one position, but another position, and then you're just kind of filling in the pieces. You get Wes Harris back. He slides in at right guard. Andrew Coker's back as a redshirt junior playing right tackle. And the puzzle has seemingly come together this year for the offensive line. And I think Alana Lee was kind of the first piece of that puzzle, and kind of the bridge between the new coaching staff and this roster. So I think there's definitely a case for him. Very underrated acquisition, I think, by the Frogs.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it about Steve Avila. So I think just to give him some love generally, he's not a transfer, so it's not on this question, but just he moves to a new position, learning a new position, new offense, all of that. And here, halfway through the season, he's on the ESPN All-American team at the season's halfway point. Really impressive from him to step into that role and still be a leader, still be, performing on the field, even at a new position. So that's great. The last question here was the play of the season through 6 games. So we've got the Darius Davis breaking the land speed record on an 80-yard touchdown at SMU. Max sprinting past all of the super slow Oklahoma defenders. Quentin Johnston's game winner against Kansas, and Jared Wiley's game-tying touchdown against Oklahoma State. What you got?
I'm going to go with Quentin Johnston against Kansas, because I feel like that was the first time this season where TCU was kind of against the ropes. And again, big-time players make big-time plays. TCU needed a play in that situation.
That was a
Quentin
play.
Johnston makes a huge play. And I think, too, just seeing how this season has gone, TCU winning that game at Kansas, I think, beating Oklahoma to stay unbeaten was, we're starting to maybe whisper a little bit about this season potentially being special. I think beating Kansas on the road when they're ranked and it's a college game day atmosphere and they're unbeaten, I think that's really the win for me. And Oklahoma State is an unbelievable win too, but Kansas is kind of the win where we really start to talk about what kind of season this
being on the road, national stage too. I mean, it's a huge moment, no question. I think that's probably the right answer. I'm partial to the Max run just because, I don't know, it's Max and it's awesome, and he makes a couple OU defenders just look very, very silly, and that's fun. All right, we're running long here, but we'll wrap it up. So we'll go ahead and look ahead at the week in the Big 12. So Kansas is at Baylor. Baylor's an 8.5-point favorite. That's a lot of points for the Baylor Bears coming off of a loss. But I'm kind of inclined to, I don't know, something Kansas may be falling off here a little bit. I'm taking the Bears to win it 10 points or more, actually.
I'm going to roll with Kansas here just because I really don't want Kansas to spoil all this momentum that they've generated. And it's tough without Jalen Daniels, but I mean, Jason Bean threw for 4 touchdown passes for the second consecutive game against Oklahoma. Kansas is running the ball well. I think Vegas just doesn't like Kansas. I'm partially convinced of that. But both of these teams really need a bounce back win. But I want to take Kansas.
All right, and then West Virginia at Texas Tech. Tech's favored by 6.5. And it looks like there's actually whispers that this is going to be a 3-quarterback game for Texas Tech. Tyler Shuck may be back, and then you got Baron Morton was looking good against Oklahoma State, and then Donovan Smith as well. So I don't know. I think Tech is a better team than West Virginia, even though the Mountaineers have a lot of talent. I'm taking the favorite to cover that 6.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas Tech as well, just because I think, Donovan Smith has racked up a lot of yards this year, but Baron Morton looked really, really good in the early going of that game against Oklahoma State, and I feel like Tech has the offense where, you put whoever's in at quarterback is gonna rack up a lot of yards. They throw a lot of passes. I'd like to see Tech run the ball a little bit more. I think they're kind of one-dimensional right now offensively, but they've racked up yards and they've racked up points. So when in doubt, air it out. I'll go with Texas Tech.
And finally, the other big one in the conference, Texas, a road favorite in Stillwater against the Cowboys. Texas is a 6.5-point favorite. This is probably too much respect for Texas. I think Oklahoma State can and probably should win this game and should certainly cover. Give me the Cowboys.
It pains me a little bit to say this, but I'm going to pick Texas, mainly because Quinn Ewers is healthy. He looked good. If Oklahoma State struggles as much as they did in the second half against TCU's defense, Texas, I think, is just as capable, if not perhaps maybe a little bit more. Cowboys are going to need a bounce-back win. I'm sure that crowd's going to be excellent. I do agree that 6.5 is very generous. I thought it would be more like maybe 1 or 2. But I think this will be a tight one. I feel like Texas is starting to get a lot of momentum rolling. I'm going to take the Longhorns.
All right, we should be in store for another super exciting week of football. We'll just close it out with a few quick other things. So TCU Soccer also was victorious over Oklahoma State in a really big game. They won 3-0 in Stillwater and are tied with Texas Tech for second in the conference, just 2 points behind Texas. So still a lot to go there. 3 games left. They play 2 on the road, Thursday and Sunday this week. And then next week is the regular season finale next Thursday, the 27th, back in Garvey Rosenthal. So hopefully all you fans come out there. It'll be a good time. Go send off that team, their last regular season game there at home before the Big 12 tournament. Also, AP poll for basketball came out, and TCU earned its highest ever preseason ranking at number 14. The expectations are off the charts for this team. Mike Miles, we talked about it being the Big 12 Player of the Year preseason. A lot of excitement around Horned Frog basketball and a lot of high expectations to live up to, and it's pretty incredible.
And Ludacris is coming to town. Don't forget about that.
Luda, we're going to roll out.
Got Kesha on campus performing in the Commons, and now Ludacris is coming. We're partying like it's 2010 in Fort Worth.
I love it. It's bringing me to glory days. That's fantastic. So exciting times all around TCU, and certainly out at Amon G. Carter Stadium on Saturday night, it's going to be absolute scenes. Wear black. Oh man, the promo photos with Quentin Johnston in the All Blacks. It's exciting. It's going to be a great day. Hopefully the Frogs can keep it rolling. And that's all we got for tonight. And really appreciate all you guys, everyone listening and following us on Twitter at Frogs of War. Follow everything we're doing out at the blog, frogsofwar.com. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Join us for the game thread during the game or on the Twitter thread during the games. It's a fun time, chop it up and, vent your frustrations as it's happening and celebrate together as exciting stuff's happening. So, thanks everyone for listening and go Frogs.
Go Frogs. Keep this thing rolling.